The Singapore Grand Prix, F1's first ever night race since 2008. And a lot of people thought at the time that a night race wouldn't work. Wouldn't the flashing floodlights blind the drivers? But nope, this was a huge success, and other countries have followed suit in making their race a night race. Abu Dhabi, a twilight race. Bahrain transitioned from a day to night race, which I think is a great decision because 2006 Bahrain Grand Prix, Saudi Arabia, Las Vegas, all these other options. And yeah, Singapore was the granddaddy of the F1 night race. And along with the novelty of being the first F1 night race, Singapore has also been a catalyst of many different championship deciding moments. One could say that the Singapore Grand Prix is one of the most crucial tracks to get right in the calendar. Why am I doing this video in August rather in October when it's actually the Singapore Grand Prix weekend? Well, two things. One, I saw this leak that Singapore got announced for a sprint race next year. Why? I like this track. It's a brilliant track. It's not a sprint race track, it's a qualifying track. And two, I live in Singapore. And to celebrate Singapore's 60th year of independence this week, I have decided, you know what, let's release it in August. And because I live here,
I decided to do it in person.
Also, audio will be pretty weird in this video because I'm gonna be doing some post-edit voiceover, and I also recorded live comms at the track, so yeah, it's gonna be a bit weird, but you can deal with it. Anyways, be sure to subscribe. We're trying to reach 10,000 by the end of this month, and also be sure to follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to reach 300 there.
I know it doesn't look like it's part of any F1 track, but this actually, that's where Crashgate was.
So, you don't need to be an F1 expert to remember what Crashgate was. Renault were struggling over the course of the 2008 season, only managing one podium up until this point, Nelson Piquet at the German Grand Prix. And even though they had Fernando Alonso back, he wasn't even able to get a podium. But since Singapore had a really interesting layout, and this one spot where if you crashed, it's guaranteed a safety car. The old Marina section, which is what was behind me here, it got demolished. It got taken down. They're gonna renovate it to make a new one. But anyways, back to Crashgate. Renault were looking decently fast throughout the whole weekend, and were looking to challenge for maybe a top 5 finish in qualifying. But unfortunately, Fernando Alonso's car breaks down in Q1, and Piquet only managed P16. So, challenging for a top spot was looking unlikely now, but it actually gave Renault the ballsiest strategy idea ever. Fernando was stuck in the classic trolley train, and Renault decided to box him extremely early. Now, it wouldn't seem unorthodox now, but back in the day, remember, this was when F1 still had refueling, so pit stops weren't as straightforward as it was now. And yeah, this was an unorthodox move from Renault until a few laps later, Nelson Piquet smashes it into the Marina. This causes everyone to dive into the pits, and Fernando Alonso came out with P3. 2 drivers ahead of him had penalties to serve, which meant he didn't actually have P3. He had the net lead of the race. But one thing to happen in the pit lane.
Why are in the Red Bull pit box are here? Ask, well, Ferrari won the constructors in 2007, so they would have been here, P1. I think you know why they won, the constructors. Well, Felipe Massa stopped here, and his fuel hose was stuck to his tank. And with that, he had to stop at the end of the pits, and Ferrari lost that race. In fact, he crashed at the Crashgate place. Force India, who was caught off guard by that later on.
And as we all know, Felipe Massa lost the championship by 1 point. So, in theory, without Crashgate, that's 10 points that he lost. And with those 10 points, he would have won the championship by 9 points. And of course, we all know about this again because he recently opened a court case to try and get back the 2008 championship. And I hope nothing comes of it because it's just gonna mess up every single controversial championship deciding moment. And you all have to realize that it's just racing. 2010 was a titanic title fight between 3 different teams and 4 different drivers. It was 5 at some point, but Jenson Button ultimately lost out on it. And one thing a lot of people tend to forget about the 2010 title fight is how stupid a lot of the drivers were. Alonso in Spa, Vettel in Turkey, Weber in Valencia, Alonso in Britain, Seb in Belgium. Yeah, I don't really think any of these drivers were at their best in 2010. And if any of them won the championship, it would have been their weakest title campaign. And I don't even think any of the 4 title challengers were the best of that season. I think it was Robert Kubica. Anyways, time for Singapore, the second F1 race I went to. I went to 2009, then I went to 2010, although I don't really count 2009 because I really don't remember anything from 2009. I was 2 years old. I actually think it was the best Singapore Grand Prix of all time. And it was a direct 1v1 from Sebastian Vettel all the way until the last lap, and Alonso won by half a second. But on lap 32 of this race,
so don't commit.
Oh, there's a problem there with, it looked like Kobayashi, was it?
and then on the safety car restart,
We're in a marshal box, so this is like the place where they wave like green, yellow flags, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, run down Raffles Boulevard. It's right over there. I'll include footage of that. And Hamilton, on the back of Weber, goes around the outside and damages his side pod. And he couldn't continue after that. He had to retire down there. And Hamilton lost 15 points of that. I think he lost by, 21 points. Just a bunch of stupid things the 2010 title contenders did. He did a stupid thing in Monza the race before, but he was also unlucky in Spain. So, yeah, that's...
So how many points did Lewis lose in 2010? Well, I think he would have finished P4 in Monza, so that's 12. He would have finished P3 or P4 in Singapore. We'll say P4. So that's another 12 points. And he lost 18 points in Barcelona. So if you add those up, that's a good 42 points. But also remember, Sebastian Vettel was unlucky with reliability throughout the season, and also the mistakes the other drivers made. I think it evens out, but I don't even think Singapore was the most crucial race of 2010. I think it was Korea. Next up, 2012. We all obviously know about the 2012 F1 season, one of the greatest F1 seasons of all time, when it's all said and done. But another big story about the 2012 F1 season was the deteriorating relationship between Lewis Hamilton and McLaren. In a season where McLaren had arguably the fastest car in the first half, slowly fell into one of their most unfortunate season in years. And to put salt on the wound of the Singapore Grand Prix,
Lewis Hamilton, back in 2012, lost his gearbox on the main straight, and DNF over here. One of the multitude of bad luck throughout 2012. Abu Dhabi, Brazil, and obviously Singapore.
And this also began the insane 4-race run Sebastian Vettel had in Asia. Now, I don't think this race affected the championship that much, but it did seal the fate of F1's future, where Niki Lauda visited Lewis Hamilton's hotel room in Singapore to try and get him to join Mercedes. And after losing his gearbox in a race that was easily his to win, Lewis finally said, "We ball," signed for Mercedes, and yeah, you all know what came after this. Anyways, nothing happened in 2013, so before we transitioned to the V6 era, I decided to walk around a bit, had some lunch, Jollibee, because I'm Filipino, and if there's a Jollibee nearby, I'm eating that Jollibee. Had Tim Hortons, because I love Canadians, like...
This is right behind me. This is the Support Series paddock. It's covered right now. They're doing construction here. And, 1 second. I think you know who I like. Anyways, let's continue.
And here's the actual F1 paddock as well. And hey, anyone want to invite me to the paddock this year? I saw La Viez got invited. Anyways, the 2014 season now, the start of the V6 era. It was the first season of Hamilton versus Rosberg. And up until the Singapore Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton only led once, and it was after the Spanish Grand Prix, thanks to a mixture of bad luck in qualifying and just having reliability issues in general. He had 3 reliability DNFs, while Rosberg only had 1. But come the Singapore Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton gets pole position, and on the grid, Nico Rosberg stalled.
He had to bring him back to the pits. Once he got out, he couldn't unlap a freaking Caterham. And because of that, he couldn't continue, but yeah, they decided to retire the car. I'm pretty sure they even did a steering wheel change.
And this would also be the race where Lewis Hamilton would regain the championship lead for the first time since Barcelona. And the rest is history. He wins the championship at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
2015, Mercedes were terrible in that race, but it didn't affect anything.
2016 is an interesting one, because Nico Rosberg lost the lead of the championship at the Hungarian Grand Prix and got it back at the Singapore Grand Prix. But the result was nearly championship threatening.
Ricciardo did that offset strategy. He was like 3 seconds before the box. When lap 61 started, he was 2.2 seconds behind. To end the race, he was 8 seconds behind Rosberg. So if he pitted a lap earlier and took away points from Rosberg, Lewis might have won. Who knows?
You know what? Quick shout out to Malaysia 2016. Since, you know, Malaysia is very near Singapore, I might as well include it.
From this day onward, that my favorite German word is Kurbelwellenlager.
Anyways, my cameraman wants a speaking role, so enjoy this clip.
I love W Series, dude. Like, you know, I love F1 Academy. Like, yeah, I'm nonchalant as hell, dude. Like, I like reading feminist literature. I just put on one AirPod in, like, just walk around everywhere.
You hoop like LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. All the hoes be watching me, you know.
I hope you enjoyed that. But anyways, what's the next one? Oh, I mean, well, what's that? I haven't heard of that. Well, what's 2017? I have never... Fine, I'll cover 2017. The entirety of 2017 was a titanic battle with Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton. And believe it or not, this season was more back and forth than Rosberg versus Hamilton, with literally nobody taking any consecutive wins in a row until Lewis Hamilton in Belgium and Monza, and that should have been expected. Although Ferrari had the best aero package, Mercedes were clearly better on the straights. But the next 3 races in Singapore, Malaysia, and Japan, Ferrari had the opportunity to capitalize on all of these races because they suited their car pretty well, considering they were pretty high downforce, and Sebastian Vettel was looking to comfortably win the Singapore Grand Prix after securing pole position, and Lewis Hamilton was only starting in P5. And then the race started.
Vettel needs to cover him off. Kimi Raikkonen on the inside, and he's crashed with Verstappen. He's hit Vettel as well. Raikkonen is out before the first corner, and he's gone into the Red Bull there as well. Carnage as Fernando Alonso gets involved in the McLaren. The Toro Rosso gets to the escape road, and Fernando Alonso is out of this race, as is Kimi Raikkonen and Max Verstappen as well.
And as we go down here, this is where Seb retired. He lost the back end. Too much damage on the car, plus a wet track, and he has fluid leaking from behind. Wait, what do I want to say? Wait.
I hate this race, and I hate the 2017 Asian Tour. So let's just completely switch off our minds and forget about 2017 because it wasn't real anyways. Sports was terrible as well. 2017 was not an enjoyable year for sports. Anyways, 2018 now. We all know Germany. Again, I don't really want to remember Germany, but here, Germany. But after the summer break, things were looking to crawl back for Ferrari after a win in Belgium and looking like the fastest car in Monza, although they ultimately bottled that. And the lead going into Singapore was 30 points. It's a long shot, but Seb came back from an even bigger lead back in 2012. So it's not completely out of the picture to think that he can still challenge for the championship. Lewis Hamilton puts in one of the greatest pole laps of all time.
A glorious man right there. Ridiculous strategy from Ferrari. When they tried to undercut Lewis, because it was an undercut attempt, he was stuck behind Perez. He can't overtake Perez. They decided to put Vettel on the ultra soft. They can't end the race on the ultra soft, but instead of doing a double stop, he just managed like a madman till the end. Finished 40 seconds behind Lewis.
The championship lead also grew to 40 points. The championship is officially sealed, and I hate you, Inaki Rueda. And since then, there hasn't been a Singapore Grand Prix when there was a fight for the championship. I really wish there was a Singapore Grand Prix in 2021. Imagine how insane that would have been, but unfortunately it was cancelled that year because of our social distancing laws at the time. Fun fact, you can only go in like groups of 5 at the time, if I remember correctly. I was 14, I should probably know that by now. There's one occasion which kinda counts, I guess. The first race Verstappen could have secured the championship in 2022, which was Singapore, but he had a terrible race, beefing with Magnussen, locking up. Yeah, it wasn't a great race from Verstappen, so he was able to secure it in Japan though. Do you think anything will happen in this year's race? I hope so, because last year's race was abhorrent. And I'm going to this year's race and I spent my own money on this. Although, if any of you F1 teams want to invite me to the paddock so I can sell off my ticket so I can make back $700, hit me up. But anyways guys, thanks for watching this video and goodbye.